We're talking with Tim Holder, who is one of the candidates for Lincoln County Commissioner. Tim, why did you decide to run this year?
I threw my name in the hat, obviously, 2 years ago, given the situation in the county commission, not having a lot of representation in the eastern part of the county. And part of that drive for me was there were some critical things that really needed some attention in this area, and among the entire county, but primarily around traffic and transportation in this area. We've been sitting on go on a lot of DOT projects for unknown amounts of time at this point, and nothing's been done. Our water and sewer infrastructure across the county is in dire need of some help. And then thirdly, it was really to kind of set course and try and continue to focus on preserving low taxes for the community, which is recruiting business in, making sure we grow the right way. And that was my original intent in 2020. And the reason I'm back in is here we sit, 2 years later, and I look at what's changed, and nothing's changed with any of those things that were really near and dear to my heart. What has changed is we've got a commission that has voted on a tax increase for the citizens of Lincoln County in the forefront of knowing that there's a property reevaluation coming up. And the markets in general, we all know what's happened to home prices and property prices over the last several years during COVID. And, this has been done while in front of the county sitting on a surplus of cash of, somewhere between $30 and $50 million. So that was really the impetus for me deciding to run again this time.
You mentioned the traffic situation and roads. What, if anything, do you believe that the county commissioners could do that they haven't done toward getting something going on there?
Well, I think from my experience, I've spent a lot of time in dealing with county governments and local governments across this region just in my career. And I think one of the things that we should take a look at is what's been done with towns like Cornelius and Huntersville and such places like that. They had numerous traffic situations where DOT had approved work and DOT wasn't going to get to that work. The county or the towns each reached out to DOT, and DOT allowed them to go ahead and contract, pay for the work, and then be reimbursed by DOT. I don't think that's been looked at here. I don't think anybody's even aware that that's a possibility with DOT. So, my intent was, be the bulldog on the board and focus on these three things, and that was my drive. So that's really where I see the opportunity to make a change.
And you mentioned water and sewer. Now, the county has already expanded the water system, and the sewer system will soon be doubled in its capacity. What additional things do you think need to be done?
I think really the driver is not so much that the capacity is needed. Obviously that was needed back then, and we've done the right things to try and put that stuff in place. The real driver is the rest of the infrastructure behind it. So our water lines, our sewer lines, being able to have sufficient capacity in the right places as we continue to know where growth, we know where growth is coming, we see it coming, we know where these homes are planned, and yet we don't have sufficient in the ground infrastructure in those places to really deal with it. And that's ideally where I see the opportunity. If we don't address that, we're going to continue to have a failing water system, which every month there's a break somewhere, there's a water leak somewhere, and if you don't address it, then as these developments or these customers, new business customers, come into town, and we can't get them what they need, we're sitting here idle, and that's really the driver for me with that.
One of the hot issues, pretty much countywide recently. Previously had been mostly an eastern Lincoln County issue. There's been a tremendous number of new housing developments.
Yep.
And the folks out of the western part of the county, well, central and western, Lincolnton and further west, have had some proposed developments recently, and they've been vehemently opposed to those developments. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think, we can't hide from development. I mean, we are an area of North Carolina and of the U.S. that's a highly sought after area to live. And a lot of the things that created that, that desire to be here are the things that, we have found so great, which is having a low tax base, having space, having room to do what you want and not be on top of everybody. What we see with growth, which is obviously inevitable, is you get traffic. You get houses built on top of each other. You get developers looking to come in and build another track. At the core of this is, we've spent time trying to think about how we lay out the community, how we do zoning and that kind of stuff. It needs to be readdressed, and the way I look at it is you can't necessarily take it as a whole. We have to concentrate on kind of what I call small area plans, if you will, which is take areas that we know will be the first to be hit or likely to be hit, and let's figure out what it really needs to look like. Let's not rely on what's sitting out there as the East Lincoln, even like with the East Lincoln zoning that was created years and years ago. Let's focus more, instead of a global approach, to specific areas within the county. And I think that's the first place, and it takes community input there. And I realize people a lot of times don't want to get out of their home and come to these meetings, but I think as you kind of shrink the area that you're talking about, you get people to pay a lot more attention to what may be proposed in those areas. And no different than as you talk about several of these developments that have recently been proposed in the West or in outside of town. You get a large turnout of people who want to express their feelings on it. But if you say we're going to do a new East Lincoln overlay zone, you may not get anybody to come out and take a look at it. You may have 10 people show up. No different than when we were doing the DOT transportation workshops around the eastern part of the county. You didn't have a lot of people showing up.
What, if anything, do you believe the current county commissioners have done that they shouldn't have done, or things that they should have done that they didn't do?
I think I kind of touched on that already a little bit, Wayne. I mean, in my mind, the number one, being a staunch believer in my beliefs regarding my party affiliation, raising taxes is just kind of the death blow for especially a Republican county commission to take a swing at. And what they in my mind, the number one thing that they shouldn't have done is taken that swing and raise the taxpayer, raise taxes for the taxpayers of this county. The questions I had originally when they proposed this were, has anybody taken a look at the budget as it exists today with consideration to the revaluation that will happen in the following year? And nobody took that look, but I would bet with certainty, if you evaluated the changes in home prices and property values that we're getting ready to see versus the budget that's there, versus maintaining the existing tax rate, that there would have been no reason to raise taxes. And quite frankly, given that there's a $30+ million surplus at the time, why bother raising taxes? You already have $30 million of taxpayers' money sitting there doing nothing. So that's what they've done that they probably shouldn't have. What haven't they done that they probably should have? DOT's had, and this is near and dear to my heart, obviously, the intersection here at Unity Church Road and Business 16. DOT's bought the land. The land's sitting there. It's no different with Pilot Knob Road. We've got all these major traffic issues on this side of the county that there's nobody fighting to try and figure out how we move them forward. And that's, we're satisfied, the board's satisfied with letting it take due course. And I don't think that's the answer that the citizens want.
And probably the most important question of all, as one goes to the polls, why should they mark your name as one of their choices for Lincoln County Commissioner?
Well, I think honestly, Wayne, I think I bring something that no one else on that board brings. I'm a small business owner. I've been in corporate America. I'm still in corporate America today. I know a lot about running a business. I know a lot about budgeting. I know a lot about what makes things work the way they're supposed to work, and not doing what you've been doing, hoping that something will change. So I think what I offer people is a business savvy commissioner who can dive into the issues within the county and approach it instead of in a typical government style. I can approach it in a manner that makes practical and business sense for the citizens of the county. So that's really what makes me different. I'm a lifelong Lincoln County boy, born and raised here. So this is near and dear to me to get it right. And having spent time across the state and in other communities watching where they've messed up, I really don't want to see it messed up in my hometown.